Could you hear that? It was so loud. Like that was louder than normal. Okay.
Yeah.
We're gonna start over.
Okay.
Welcome back to the Story of the Hairdresser. I am your host, David Bosher. I am not here with my trusty sidekick today, which means I get to interview one of our current or former students. But before I introduce our guest, I want to remind you that the Hairdresser Hotline is open. You can call, you can text, you can vent, you can ask questions. It's all anonymous. We use it on our podcast. It's 201 564 5007. But without further ado, I am so excited to speak with our guest today, Natalie Calais, one of my OG students from, I don't know, 2000 what? 2017?
I mean, 2016, maybe?
Yeah, 2016, 17.
Yeah.
That is wild. So before we get into everything, tell everyone how long you have heard about DTH and like what got you interested.
I heard about you guys, like it had to be like 2016. You popped up on an Instagram ad and I was like, oh, what's this? And I was working at an Aveda salon at the time, and it was very structured, very corporate.
And you were in
I was
Oregon, in
in
Seattle. Okay.
Yeah. And I was like desperately looking for something to change what I was in, and I saw you guys, and so I decided to sign up for a call.
And we started working together pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I think it was just you and Sid at the time.
it was just the two of us. We were living in Brooklyn, where you live now, which is kind of funny. But I remember when I first met you, we were really going in on some like family stuff and emotional stuff. And then you were like, I'm coming to New York City.
Yeah.
What was that? How did you get to that place in coaching that you were like, I'm leaving Seattle? I'm not just leaving my salon, I'm leaving where I live.
The state. I mean, I was in love with a girl.
That's usually what happens. Yeah.
But I mean, that aside, I had like really just gotten to a point where I didn't see the future that I wanted in Seattle. And I had like kind of exhausted all of my options, and for what I wanted to do, which at the time was like definitely more like editorial and commercial styling, it was either New York or LA. And so, I came out to New York on my own to visit, fell in love, and with the city. The girl was already here, but
And what was it like? What was it like in those early years of coaching for you? Like what do you remember the most when you first started that journey?
I think like what I learned the most then and what still like resonates the most today is like just remaining like the work around consciousness and like reactivity. Like I've evolved through so many different phases and stages, and then circled all the way back to other things that are like, I'm like, oh, we've seen this before, but now it's showing in a different light.
Right.
That is something that stuck with me like from the very beginning.
That's amazing. And you came to New York. Your plan was to get into the editorial world and to do fashion and things like that. How do you think coaching? I like your story because in coaching, so many other things happen. Divorces happen, moves happen, so many like life changes happen.
Mm-hmm.
How did coaching play a role in moving into the direction towards New York, into making that big move? Because there's hairdressers out there that are, some of them feel stuck where they're at, not just locally, but like they don't know how to get out of their home state to find something new. What would you tell them works for you?
To quote Kate Kent, just fucking do it.
That quote is timeless.
I know. I've never even like worked with her personally, but it's like still in the back of my head. Like I see it pop up. I see stories pop up. It's been in the podcast,
Yeah.
But I think that that's it. It's like truly like once you take that risk, what's on the other side of the risk is um, like your step towards like is your next step. You know,
Right.
like you have to take the risk. If it works out for you in the way you want, amazing. But if it doesn't, then you pivot and you make another decision and you just keep moving. But you
Right.
have to make the decision to just do it and go from there. So, and then
Well,
like also, I feel like once you make the decision, even if it doesn't work out, other opportunities come like show up. And so you're like, oh, this didn't work for me, but like now this really cool thing is here. So let's go in that direction. And
what was
here
it
I
like?
am owning a salon.
What was it like before I get into the salon stuff? What was it like moving to New York with no clientele and really just kind of like I'm going and I'm gonna see what happens?
It was really scary. I also came from like a really structured salon background. And so while I was coming out here, I was looking, I didn't want to go back into that, but that's like what I knew. But like interviewing for those types of salons, they wanted me to start out as an assistant. And I was like, I've been doing this for 10 years. So I'm not assisting anymore. Like, also, that's
It's a
not going to
very
pay
New
well.
York, it's a very New York thing. Nothing
Yeah.
exists.
Yeah.
Whatever you did before doesn't matter.
Right, exactly. So I was like, I'm absolutely not assisting. And so I got in at like a smaller salon that had a pretty like decent like walk-in, you know, establishment type thing. And I just started building from there. And like, but like that salon and many other salons that I worked at after that had like zero structure and
Yeah.
were all pretty wild.
The
So it was
opposite.
like the complete opposite of what I had been used to. So I was like, I don't know, I'm just gonna build this thing and do this thing. And that's where that honestly is also like where coaching came in really
Yeah.
handy. Yeah.
So you left Seattle, you moved to New York, you're working with me this whole time. You get here and you start working for small salons. What was the moment and when did you transition to say, I need to have my own space? I need to have my own small salon or suite. I think you started with a suite first.
Yeah. Yeah.
What
Yeah.
made what was that choice like and what made that choice?
I had gone, I was on my like third salon in New York, which yeah, my third salon, and I had been there for like 4 or 5 years. We went through the pandemic together. And it was like really like post pandemic, a lot of things had changed. And like within like the infrastructure of the salon, like owners were switching. And it was also a time in New York where everybody was moving stylists from like a 1099 to a W-2. And like it was just very like shit was everywhere. And
Right.
so I um, started looking at other salons because I was like, oh, this isn't working for me. I'm going to go look at other salons. And I did. I toured and looked at like a bunch of different salons. And as like an established stylist who had been working with DTH for, you know,
Yeah.
half of my career, what feels like at this point, every salon that I went into was just like in throes of massive change.
Right.
And I was like, I can't guarantee my business for my clients if I'm walking in and like there's like you could change shit a year from now and I could be unhappy. Like I was like, I just need to do my own thing.
Yeah,
And so
it's the jumping from place to place that you're like, this isn't gonna do it anymore.
yeah, exactly. I was like, I'm exhausted. I just want a home, you know? And then I saw that Sola randomly was opening in Williamsburg of all places.
Right.
And so I went and I toured, and it was still like we're in the Mill Building
It's a
down
beautiful
on
building.
North Third and Wythe. Yeah, it's gorgeous, but we're like sub level, so we're in the basement. And I
Mhm.
walked in, and like they were installing plumbing, so it was like still like dirt like on the ground. Like I was like, oh, okay, here we are, we're doing this. Yeah, and we just
And
went from there.
you took the leap. You and I stopped working together, and then I think you weren't in coaching for a while, and
Mhm.
then you kind of came back,
Yeah,
right? We call
yeah.
obviously for those of you that don't know, we call students that come back boomerang students, and I love boomerang students because I have this theory that when you leave coaching and then you come back, it's just another level of
Mhm.
how seriously you take it.
Yeah.
What was it like leaving coaching and coming back, and what did you do differently that second round, and who was your coach?
Ethan was my coach second round.
Right.
And I had been out of coaching for a long time, but like the self growth, like that never stopped. Like I was in therapy for a really long time. And for me, for a minute, it was like, where can I, like, it, like, what can fit my budget? And for what was
Right.
happening in
Right.
my life at that time, therapy was the way to go. And then coming back into coaching, I was like, I need something that's like, a little bit more like business oriented, but will still like help me work through some of my own like
Stuff.
weird shit. Yeah. So I got back into coaching with Ethan, and it was about the time that I was moving out on my own. And like truly moving out on my own. Like I had moved into my studio already with a friend, and I knew that I wanted to just have my own space, and potentially like start a small salon.
Yeah.
Um, but I was like, ooh, this seems really like scary and risky. And at that point, I was realizing that I was like really stuck and frozen.
Yeah.
And whereas like before, I was like, I'm gonna like just pummel over everybody, and I was like like in real like fight, you know.
Yep.
But this time, I'm like, I need somebody to like
Push
rip the
me.
band-aid, you know, push me off the ledge. So that's how I got into it with Ethan, and he was really great at that.
How did he help you in that transition to your own space?
I think that he just provided like encouragement and like a safe space to be like he was just like really good at being like the feelings that you're having like aren't you. It's
Yeah.
like um the rest of the world, honestly, being
Right.
like it's you like holding on to that and being like, ooh, I can't like disappoint people, or like, is that really me? But he was like, no, like it is you. This is who you are. And like lean into that. And he was really good at like, I don't know, just like little stories or like anecdotes or something that would like boost my confidence where I was like, yeah, man, you're right. You're right. I can do this. This is great. So yeah.
And did you only work with Ethan, or did you work with one other coach after that?
Just Ethan. Yeah.
Okay, so just me and Ethan. Okay. And so you got into your salon suite, and then you started hiring right away, or what was it like? Did you work with your friend and then start hiring? How did that, because there's so many people out there that are like, I have a salon suite. How do I grow? Okay, DTH is saying hire it while I'm in a suite. What was that experience like, and when did it start?
So I moved into a suite where I just split the rent with my friend. We
Mhm.
weren't like in business together or anything, two separate businesses, just sharing the rent. And I had wanted to hire because I was only working like, because I knew I eventually like wanted to have employees and staff. And I knew that like, in order to do that, I was going to need time to manage like the business and like prep all of this and grow. It's another thing that Ethan like really helped me with was like all of my onboarding, like understanding like how to like really set yourself up to like start hiring so
Yeah.
that like once you're ready to go, it just moves.
Right.
So for the time that I was in my studio with my friend, I really worked on like all of that like back end stuff to like start like growing it all to where like when I was ready to hire, it was just like, okay, come in, start, everything's here for you. I'm not doing much work on the back
Right.
end of everything. And I had asked my friend, because I was only in my chair like 3 or 4 days a week. So I was like, hey, can I like hire somebody and put them in my chair the other days? And she was like, no, I don't want to work with anybody else, which is understandable. So I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm going to move into my own studio. And then it like, as you say that, my landlord was like, oh, this is opening. Do you want it now? And I was like, I'm not ready, but sure, let's go. So I did it. And then because I had everything like ready to go, as I was like literally moving in, I started posting things on Instagram and just like putting the word out there. And like within, I think it was like within like 3 weeks, I had hired my first employee.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's it like in a salon suite with employees for people that are thinking about it?
So for me, I just have a single chair. So we're not working together ever. Like, so it really has to be like on my end where I'm like, I'm reaching out, I'm contacting, we're doing the you and me's, we're, you know, like, so
Yeah.
that we have some sort of like crossover. Otherwise I would just never
Because
see
you don't see them. Yeah.
yeah, because they're like literally like they're running their own book, they're doing their own thing. And it's like, it is really lovely. But at the same time, it leaves the like, am I doing enough? Like thing in the back of my
Every
head.
every
You know?
salon owner,
Yeah.
thinks this.
I'm like, this is wild, but also, yeah, I guess I am, you know? But also I've realized that the blessing of having a single suite and not having to see how they're working every day, like it's forcing me to have to release that I want to control everything
Right.
because I'm physically not there. I can't see how they're running their business. I can't see. So like where I would be like, because I know myself and I would be like, ooh, it's not how I would do it probably. And like
Right.
biting my tongue, it like the physical space, like because that exists, I don't like those things are still happening in the back of my head, but
I get it.
yeah, yeah,
And to clarify, when you hired them, they were commission employees?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the reason I'm pointing that out is because so many people that listen to our podcast are suite owners.
Yeah.
And with DTH, we really call, what Natalie has done, we've given it a name where it's a micro salon, right? Where you're starting with a suite and you're slowly building employees. And now, Natalie, you're actually moving to a bigger suite
Yeah.
in Brooklyn because you have 4 employees, correct?
Yeah.
And is it that you grew out of your space?
Yeah.
Tell people
Entirely.
what was that like? When did you know that you grew out of your space, and what was the anxiety around like, oh shit, like I have too many people, I gotta find a bigger location?
I knew I moved into my space in March and I knew that I had outgrown it by June.
Wow,
Like
that's fast.
I should have just gone for a double. But I was also nervous because I was hiring stylists that were like a little newer. And so they were needing to build a book. And so I was like, I need to be able to cover this on my own. So I didn't want to take like the whole risk of like investing in like rent, that I can't afford on my own, Also, like if you're only hiring 2 people and 2 people decide to leave, like I need that little bit of cushion. So that's what kept me in a single, but I like quickly outgrew it. Yeah.
And going to this bigger location, how many chairs will it have?
It'll have 2.
Amazing.
Yeah. So
what would you tell people?
now.
Well, what would you tell people? What's the reality of hiring within a suite? Because I think people are probably listening going, you have 2 chairs and 4 employees, and do you plan on having more employees, and how does that work? Like from your point of view, I'm assuming you've learned a little bit of this from DTH.
Mm-hmm.
What was the moment that you were like, okay, this actually can work and this makes sense? Like, when did it finally click that you're like, oh, a suite, you hire people, this is the future of how salons will probably grow?
Yeah. I think it clicked for me like right away. Like
Great.
as soon as I like moved into my own suite, I think it's similar to like now that I'm hiring, like you get a newer stylist who's just like eager and ready and they're not like bogged down by like bad habits or shit the industry has taught them. Unlike somebody who's more established who may have the clientele, but they have all of, these things that they need to work through.
Like you and me.
Right? Yeah, exactly. But like I had never like been in a suite before, So I went in with the like, I'm just going to do this and I've never done it before. And like, this is the coaching that I've had, this is like what's been working for me because I like had wanted to go to an hourly rate for forever. I had wanted to go gratuity free for forever, you know, like things like that.
Yeah.
And so as soon as I went in, I was like, oh, this works well for me. And I could
Right.
go from working 5 days behind the chair to 3. And, you know, like
And
I
not lose
just,
money.
yeah, right. And yeah. So I knew like right away that if I could hire people who were as eager as myself to just do it, that it like we could make it work.
What would you tell people? I think Destroy the Hairdresser is the easiest way to run a business, but
Yeah.
it comes off as a difficult way to run the business. So I think there's what people assume and see, like, oh my gosh, going to hourly sounds like a lot, right?
Yeah.
Getting rid of gratuity sounds like a lot. Hiring in a small space sounds like a lot. So station sharing sounds like a lot. So everything
Mhm.
about DTH sounds like a lot, but technically it's probably the easiest way to do it. What do you think, or how would you explain that dichotomy to people? Why does it look so complicated, but yet it's the easiest?
I think that it looks or it sounds so complicated because nobody is really doing it yet. You know,
Right.
I mean, like besides DTHers, like it's not like something that's, I mean, you see like hourly pricing, but yet they are
But it's
charging on a
not.
15-minute, that they're not
Yes.
hourly, you know, like,
Yeah.
so I think that it seems really scary for those, or like really, not scary, but like challenging for people that have been in an industry for so long that like is literally built to keep you small.
Right.
Like it's like quite literally built to keep us like in line doing our thing, just like any other, I mean, corporate
Right.
position, right?
Right.
But like what we're doing and what I'm doing at least is like truly taking reins on like my own career. And by implementing these things, I think the hardest part has been trusting that it's going to work, and like kind of like putting blinders on to like the other shit that I see on social media,
Yeah.
the other like talk that I hear in the industry and like people surrounding, and just like looking at what's right in front of me and going like, no, this is actually working because
Yeah.
I am working 18 hours a week behind the chair, and like I'm covering all of the expenses for the
Right.
business, you know, like, and the people that I've hired, like they're making their money, they're getting paid, and they're building their books slowly, but they're also like happy and like stoked because they are making their own schedule and they're not held to like some crazy like benchmarks of like you have to sell this to get
Right.
this raise, you know, like yeah. So
What was the hardest method to get behind from coaching? Or which one was scariest or took you the longest,
um
if
I
any?
I don't think there was really anything, honestly, because I had already like niched down. Like, also, I've been doing this for a really long time,
Mhm.
and also like going through the pandemic in New York City and not working for 5 months, like really put it in perspective for me that like, oh, we've been here before. Like I can survive, you know, if I go out on my own and if I put these things
Right.
into play and they don't work, you know,
It's
I
interesting.
can pivot.
We opened. I like. I feel. I don't know what it is. Sid might be able to. Sid can text me from the producer room. I think we opened over 10 salons during the pandemic because I think after the fear wore off,
Hmm.
there was a level of like, oh, like that was the worst case scenario. Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna go open a business because if
Yeah.
that's as bad as it can get, and I'm not, it was other people, certain people had really horrible experiences, but
Right.
people that really survived it, they were like, oh, there's no point in not moving forward with
Absolutely.
my own business, and I feel like that's kind of what happened to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Um, So you were kind of behind the methods pretty early. You kind of were with DTH towards the beginning of when we started. So you've had a long time to digest them. What do
Mhm.
you hear kind of out in the world when it comes to like running salons? What do you hear other people that are outside of Destroy the Hairdresser saying about the industry versus how you feel about it with these tools and kind of this lens? What's the biggest difference?
That, like, I've heard people say that, like, being in a suite isn't being a salon owner. And I'm like, yeah, like the only difference is that I'm not bound to a 10-year commercial lease. I can move
Exactly.
my business wherever I want, whenever I want. I like I do have to deal, like, as the suite owner or salon owner, like I had to like go through contracts. Like I got lawyers, I got, like I did all of that. I made sure like you can go into a suite as a, sole proprietor
Yeah.
and do it that way. But if you want to actually, like, if the goal is opening a business and like having a brick and mortar salon at some point, then like it would be silly to start and then have to go back and redo everything with like your LLC and all that stuff
Right.
later. So like just go into it. Anyways, yeah, I think that's like the most irritating one. Also, like, oh, like they'll just take care of everything for you. I can tell you, like, not necessarily. We flooded last September. I was the only one in the studio because I was taking an 8 a.m. client, and it was like the fucking Titanic, like in the studios. And I was like on the phone looking for the sub pump, going up to the apartment building to like get people, like get the like front desk guys to like it was insane. And I was like, I am a business owner. I'm doing this. Like, like it was
Listen,
crazy. Yeah.
what my theory is that you're not a salon owner if you're doing hair behind the chair all day every day, and that's how you're like
Yeah.
that's a hairdresser,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
a salon owner to me is someone who sets up a business, sweet or not, where they're employing other people and it allows them to step further and further away from the chair.
Yeah.
And I think that's scary. I think that's terrifying to a lot of people. There's a lot of salons out
Absolutely.
there that look very successful where the owner is still doing 100%
Yeah.
of the work. And I think that's one of the biggest things we try to teach people here is like, that's not the goal,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
What are your plans to open a brick and mortar space of your own? Do you have any?
I do. I do have plans. Yeah. So right now, because I did hire, a few people that they're not as established right now, so we're still building,
Hmm.
but like building pretty quickly. So
Yeah.
my goal is like I've literally moved. Like this will be my second move within a year. Um,
Wow.
for like I moved into a suite and now I'm moving into a bigger suite. And so I really, for myself, just want to take at least a year to
Yep.
not do the
To
shuffle
not move.
again. Yeah.
Famous
So
last words, though, right? Famous
Jesus
last.
Christ, I'm like knock on wood, knock on wood. Um, so I want to take at least a year to just get everything squared away, get the rest of my debt paid off,
Yep.
which is also like going very fast. I'm like confident by this time next year. Like if I need, I also like was able to find my first investor. I haven't tapped into it yet, but it's there for, if I need that capital.
Amazing.
Um, yeah, it's pretty exciting. It wasn't something I was expecting, but it was an offer. And
Yeah.
I was like, or I didn't even think about this. Like I was just trying to get financial advice from you. And they were like, oh, no, we get it. We're here when
Right.
you need it. So I was like kind of floored. But they were also like, in the financial realm, like we think that you should go like through a bank, do these
Yep.
things so you know how to do them. It's like important that we know how to actually run our businesses. But
Absolutely.
the the conversation did come up, and so that was really exciting. But yeah, so it's a
That's
year,
amazing.
pay off the rest of my debt, and then probably get into more so I can build out
Exactly.
so I can build out a bigger space. Yeah.
Exactly. You pay off debt to go into debt. It's just that's how
Right.
debt works.
Yeah,
What
exactly.
I know you said that, Destroy the Hairdresser and coaching has left a mark on you in a way of understanding your reactivity and understanding all of those things. How do you feel it set you up to think differently about business?
Um, I think that um it's interesting because I was just having a conversation with a friend last night who's in corporate, and she was like so like angry and pissed off about the situations that she had been in within her career.
Hmm.
And it's like, as a business owner and like working with DTH, and now me being like, I'm not corporate, I'm small business, but like being able to sit there and like, she was like really activated, super angry, and like had no idea kind of like why or how to break through it. And
Right.
I just like sat in the seat and was like cycling through and being like, wow, I've been her before, where
Right.
I can like see where that anger is coming from. But also knowing that like I can be that angry, but there's like ways to work through it.
Right. And now
You
you can help
know,
other people.
and you can help other people, right? Like, and I can like show other people how to also like guide themselves, yeah, through that experience. So I feel like for me specifically, just being able to like check myself and be present in
Yeah.
my business, and like with not just my business, but like throughout my life,
Yeah.
that's what DTH has done for me. It's great. Great.
I love hearing that. And the reason I like to asking people is because I think our way is the easiest way, but at first the hardest way. And I
Yeah.
think letting people understand like the grass is a little greener on the other side is really important. What was your haircut price in 2016 before coaching? Do you remember?
Yeah, 65.
$65.
Yeah,
What is your hourly rate today?
200.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. And how has hourly pricing changed the way that you do business?
It is like, it takes all of the ick out of the money conversation.
Yeah.
I've luckily, when I was working in Seattle, I had a boss who was like very forward thinking in the like charging your worth, like did a lot of work with us around our like feelings with money and stuff like that. So it was easy for me to it's always been easy for me to like have the conversations behind the chair about like, it's like, okay, yeah, I'm charging $45 or $65 for a haircut, but like also we got to do all these add-ons, and like we're gonna do,
Right.
and so like, my tickets were high,
But because
but
you had to
I
work
had
the
to work to
ticket.
get it. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And so now it's just like, okay, like this is the rate. Everything over here is included. If
Yep.
that's not affordable to you, then like let's talk about what, it's like what you're wanting will take 3 hours. You can only afford an hour. What
Right.
does that look like? So for me it's like nothing but easy, because then you're
What are
not
the
feeling
cli
gross.
what are the clients? How do they take it?
They love it.
No
Everybody
complaints?
loves it. No complaints.
And the new stylists, have they heard of this before starting with you, or are you kind of presenting this new idea to them?
No, I think that a lot of them, or a few of them, have already known about it or worked at salons that are like implementing some of
Great.
it, but
Some
not all of
version.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
some version. Um, and then also like most of them also queer, so
Yeah.
working in some sort of like flat rate,
Helps
no
them.
gratuity, like that's also kind of just been what they're looking for anyway. So
Excellent.
yeah.
I love hearing all this. This is for those of you listening, I haven't really seen or spoken to Natalie for I don't even, online we've messaged and text, but
Yeah.
but we haven't seen each other in such a long time. So all my questions are really like me wanting to know what's going on. So I hope they're good questions. But what would you tell someone who's listening to this podcast? They're like, I listen to DTA because what we have found is people listen to our podcast for about a year before they jump into anything coaching wise, which I understand because they're, you're really trying to see if you can handle this. What would you tell the person who's been listening and they're like, I want to do it, but I'm terrified?
I think that like just if you haven't yet, at least like just do the phone call where you chat with somebody about being placed with somebody,
Right.
like just like go like one step further than just listening. Like, you don't have to commit to anything, but just like even doing that for yourself, like you'll find that like, oh, like you're going to get excited. And for those of us that like are feeling stuck or like we're panicked, it's like, it takes a little bit of that excitement to like go do the thing, but
Yeah.
I don't like if you're already thinking about it and you're already considering it, then like it's an automatic yes. Like just do it.
Just fucking do it.
Just fucking do it.
That I think we need to change the name of our podcast to that because every guest we have, that's kind of their response of like, what would you tell someone who's listening? Just fucking do it. And
right.
there's
Kate
really nothing else to say.
She needs to trademark it.
She does.
Like yesterday.
She owns it. We won't steal it. We won't steal it. All right. So I want to just hear final thoughts of your overall Destroy the Hairdresser experience. You don't have a coach right now, right?
No.
But you can always come back whenever you want.
I do. I don't have a coach. I am a part. Oh, this is like other, like something, I don't know if you guys are still doing, like offering it, but like the online stuff where they can go and watch and stuff.
It's called DTH Plus.
Yeah. DTH Plus. I have that. I use it for my stylists. I'll be like, hey, watch this video here and there, and it's then just gives us something to relate on.
Perfect.
But yeah, sorry, sidetrack. What was your last question again?
What, if you were to sum up like your coaching experience and why you chose DTH and why you keep returning, what would you say?
I think that I chose DTH because I was really ready to make a change of some sort in my life. And at the time, my career was like what was the best thing in my life. And so I was like, if I'm going to invest in anything, it should be that. And you guys like kind of like blew me out of the water, and it did like quote coincide. Like you guys were like riding right along with like the therapy that I was doing for like my own personal work anyways. And so it kind of just turned into like this melding pot of like intense self-growth. And I think that that's like what keeps me coming back. Isn't necessarily like, yes, you're changing a business and you're changing the industry, but in order to do that, you're literally changing the way that like we work with each other as people. Right. And I feel like that's something that's missed a lot with Destroy the Hairdresser. People are like, oh, you're just putting in all of these things and without considering. And it's like, no, like that's the whole point.
There's so much consideration.
So much consideration and so much understanding and so much depth. And like people that haven't done that work quite yet don't understand it, which is totally okay. But like you have to start somewhere. So, and like with you guys, you can like truly start at the very beginning and like start peeling all of those layers back. So if you are a person that is like ready to do some self-work,
we're here.
You're there. I'm here.
Natalie, how can people follow you and find you on social media?
So my personal Instagram is Natalie at Natalie Kalai. And then my business is at kinetic.nyc.
Kinetic.nyc. And I said Kalai earlier. I apologize. Natalie Kalai.
Yeah.
And it's NATHALIA. IE. Sorry.
Yes.
Okay, and we're gonna tag you and everything, so they'll be able to find you. And like everyone, if you're a salon owner in the New York area and you want to pick Natalie's brain, send her a DM. If you're a hairdresser looking for a new opportunity, message Natalie. Natalie, I want to thank you for being here, sharing your
Thank you for
story.
having me.
I'm
Yeah,
also excited to follow up with you and see where you are. You said a year. I have a feeling it's
here.
going to be a little faster, but yes,
I know, I know. I feel like it's going to too, but like for like I'm literally moving in 3 weeks, and so thinking about moving again,
you're
I'm
like,
like,
you're
I
like,
need to take a
absolutely.
nap. Yeah.
That's
So
amazing.
yeah.
Well, congratulations. We love
Thank
watching your journey. We haven't taken our eyes off it, and it's been a pleasure kind of seeing you grow and do your thing in New York City.
you. Yay. Thank you so much. Appreciate
You're
you.
welcome. That was great.
Thanks. That was so fun.
You feel good about it?
I do. I'm like, hopefully I don't look like I'm like blinded the whole time.